Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something, well, really essential if you're anywhere near music creation.
Yeah.
Beat licensing and music copyright.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably found yourself scratching your head about the details sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's actually protected?
Yeah.
How do these licenses even work?
Yeah. And how do you make sure you're, legally sound without getting totally bogged down in jargon? It's a lot.
So we're going to try and demystify all that today.
Okay. And I think to really get beat licensing, you first have to understand the two fundamental copyrights in music. Our sources, like TuneCore and the Copyright Office, they make this super clear.
Right.
There's the copyright for the sound recording, the master, people often call it. And then there's the copyright for the underlying musical composition. That's the song itself. Melody, lyrics, structure, all that. Keeping those two separate in your head. That's the key.
Absolutely. That's the bedrock. And that's basically our mission for this deep dive. We've pulled together info from TuneCore, Unison Audio, CD Baby, Reddit threads, Mixelite, YouTube explainers, the Copyright Office itself.
We have a range of sources.
Yeah, trying to give a really clear picture. We want you walking away knowing how beat licensing works, what rights are involved for producers and artists, and crucially, how everyone can, protect their work and get paid fairly.
Sounds like a plan. Where should we start?
Let's start right at the foundation. Copyright itself.
Okay. So copyright, TuneCore describes it as basically a set of legal rights. And these rights, they're automatically granted to the creator of an original audio work the moment it's fixed in a tangible form.
Fixed, like recorded.
Exactly. Hitting record, saving that MP3, pressing a CD, even writing down sheet music. Once it exists in that fixed state, boom, copyright law protects it.
And that's where that crucial difference comes in again, the recording versus the song.
Precisely. The Copyright Office in Circular 50, they use that great example, rolling in the deep. You've got the song itself, the music, the lyrics written down. That's one copyright.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Adele's specific recording of it. That's a separate copyright, the sound recording.
Okay.
And if, say, another artist covered it, their recording would be yet another distinct sound recording copyright.
Makes sense. Two layers.
What's really interesting, though, and Wikipedia points this out clearly, is that copyright protects the expression of an idea, not the idea itself.
So you can't just copyright happiness.
No. Or a concept, or a process, or a system.
Mm-hmm.
CD Baby reinforces this for music. You can't copyright things like really common chord progressions.
Yeah, go 1, 4, 5.
Exactly, or super generic drum beats, or just a musical style like reggae, or even song titles. Imagine if someone could copyright I Love You as a title.
Yeah, that would be chaos. Music would grind to a halt. Okay, so we've got the two copyright layers, and we know it protects the specific way something sounds or is written, not the general idea. So now, beat licensing. What's actually happening there?
Right. So beat licensing, according to Unison Audio and Ed Talenti's YouTube channel, it's basically granting permission. A producer gives an artist permission to use a beat they made.
Oh.
But, and this is key, it's under specific conditions laid out in the license agreement. Usually the producer keeps the original copyright to the beat. They're not selling the beat itself.
It's more like renting it.
That's a perfect analogy. Yeah, you're renting the right to use it, not buying the whole building.
Gotcha. And Ed Talenti also mentioned different types of licenses, which seems really important.
Absolutely vital. There are two main camps, non-exclusive and exclusive.
Non-exclusive sounds like anyone can use it.
Well, not anyone, but the producer can license that same beat to multiple different artists.
Oh, okay.
And Ed Talenti, TuneCore mentions this too, points out there can be tiers within non-exclusive. You might see basic, premium, unlimited.
And those tiers control how much you can use it.
Pretty much. They usually set limits on things like how many streams the final song can get, or sales, or radio plays. A basic license might be cheaper, but have tighter limits.
Okay, so you pay less, but if the song blows up, you might hit a ceiling. What about unlimited, not exclusive?
Unlimited gives you more freedom in terms of usage numbers, but the producer can still license that exact same beat to someone else.
Right, so you could end up with the same beat on two different hit songs.
It happens. Now, exclusive licenses are different.
How so? Exclusive means just one person.
Exactly. With an exclusive license, Ed Talenti explains, the artist licensing it is the only one who gets to use that beat going forward. The producer usually pulls it from their stores, stops selling it.
So the artist gets sole use. Do they own the copyright then?
That's a really common misconception. Usually, no. Ed Talenti stresses this. They're typically still just buying a license, albeit an exclusive one. They don't automatically own the underlying copyright of the beat composition or the producer's original sound recording.
Okay, so even with exclusive, the producer often still owns the core copyright, but they promise not to let anyone else use it.
Precisely. Artists going for major releases or working with labels often want that exclusivity. They don't want another artist dropping a track with the same instrumental.
Makes total sense. Now, there's this other term that came up, work for hire. TuneCore and the Copyright Office mention it. How does that fit in?
Work for hire. This is a really critical distinction. It's basically a situation where an artist specifically commissions a producer to make a beat for them.
Like a custom job.
Exactly. And crucially, as part of the agreement, the artist often buys the complete copyright ownership right from the start. The producer is treated legally like an employee creating the work for the artist. The artist becomes the legal author and owner.
Whoa. So the producer gets paid, but then has no more rights.
Pretty much. TuneCore strongly advises producers to be really, really careful with work-for-hire agreements for beats. If you sign one, you could be giving up all future rights, all potential royalties, everything associated with that beat.
Yikes. Okay, major takeaway for producers listening. Scrutinize any work-for-hire contract. Don't accidentally sign away your future.
Absolutely. Understand what you're agreeing to.
Okay, we've got copyright basics, license types. Let's talk money. Monetization, royalties. This always feels like a maze.
It can be, but let's break it down. TuneCore outlines 3 main royalty types: master royalties, performance royalties, and mechanical royalties.
Master royalties, that's for the recording itself.
Generally, yes. Those flow to the owner of the sound recording, usually the artist, maybe their label or distributor.
Okay, and the other two, performance and mechanical.
Those are tied to the underlying composition, the song itself. They usually go to the songwriters, composers, and their publishers.
And this is where those beat license agreements get really specific about how that publishing money gets split, right?
Exactly. TuneCore gives a couple of examples for non-exclusive licenses that really show the difference.
Like what?
Well, in one scenario, the producer might keep, say, 50% of the writer's share of the publishing.
Okay, half the writer's credit.
And 100% of the publisher's share.
Whoa, all of the publisher side.
Yeah. So even if the artist wrote all the lyrics and performed the vocals, the producer in this setup effectively controls all the publishing rights for the composition. They'd likely be the one issuing mechanical licenses for downloads or CDs.
So the producer could end up with way more than half the publishing money in that deal.
Potentially, yes. TuneCore's example shows how that split gives the producer a much larger slice of the publishing pie.
Wow. What was the other example?
The other was a more straightforward 50-50 split. Half the writer's share and half the publisher's share goes to the producer. The other half of both goes to the artist.
That sounds, well, more balanced maybe, especially if the artist added a lot melodically or lyrically.
It can be. You can really see how your income potential shifts based just on this clause. A producer with a hot beat might argue for a bigger share. An artist who's a strong songwriter will push for 50-50 or more. Negotiation is key.
So artists really need to read that fine print on publishing splits.
Absolutely critical. It directly impacts your earnings from performance royalties like radio play, streaming, and mechanical royalties.
Okay, mechanicals. CD Baby and TuneCore talked about those. That's when the song is reproduced.
Exactly. Physical copies, CDs, vinyl, but also digital downloads, and even interactive streams where you choose the song. Any reproduction of the composition.
And who collects those? Is it ASCAP or BMI?
Good question. No, the performing rights organizations like ASCAP and BMI, they handle performance royalties. Mechanicals in the U.S. are handled by agencies like the Harry Fox Agency, HFA, or now the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC.
The MLC.
Yeah, distributors like CD Baby often have services like their CDB Boost that help artists register with and collect from the MLC.
Okay. And CD Baby also mentioned something about cover songs. Compulsory licenses?
Right. If you want to record a cover of someone else's song that's already been released, you can usually get a compulsory mechanical license. You just have to pay a set rate, currently about 9.1 cents per copy or download in the U.S.
Interesting. Okay, what about music in videos? Sync licensing.
Sync licensing, yeah. Big one. That's when music is synchronized with visuals, videos, films, TV, games. CD Baby explains you typically need 2 licenses for sync.
Let me guess. One for the master recording and one for the composition.
You got it. Both sides need to clear it, and this ties into YouTube's Content ID.
Ah, right. because people upload videos with music all the time without asking.
Exactly. CD Baby points out many YouTubers don't get direct sync licenses. So if you've registered your music with Content ID, YouTube's system can automatically find videos using your track. And then you, the copyright owner, can choose to monetize that video with ads. So you make money from that otherwise unauthorized use. It works for both the sound recording and sometimes the composition too.
That's huge for creators, turning infringement into income.
Yeah.
Okay, understanding royalties is clearly crucial. Let's shift to actively protecting your work. What are the steps?
Okay, protection. Unison Audio, CD Baby, they both really hammer this home. Official copyright registration with the U.S. Copyright Office is paramount.
Even though you technically have copyright once it's recorded.
You do, but official registration gives you serious legal advantages.
Like what? Why bother with the paperwork?
Well, first, it creates a public official record of your ownership. Much easier to prove it's yours. Second, and this is huge, you must have registered your copyright before you can file an infringement lawsuit in federal court.
Really? You can't sue without registering first?
Generally, no. Wikipedia and CD Baby confirm this. There's like a tiny exception if the office rejects your claim, but basically, registration is your ticket to court.
Okay, that's major. What else?
Registration makes you eligible for statutory damages and potentially attorney's fees if you win your lawsuit.
Statutory damages, those are the preset amounts, right? Not just proving your losses.
Exactly. They can range from hundreds to tens of thousands of dollars per infringement. And if the infringement was willful, like they knew they were stealing it, can be even higher, up to $150,000 per work sometimes. Plus, registration gives you a legal presumption of ownership in court. That's powerful.
Wow. Okay, official registration sounds non-negotiable for serious protection. How do you actually do it? Is it complicated?
It involves filling out an application, paying a fee, and submitting copies of your work, what they call deposit copies. CD Baby and the Copyright Office circulars lay it out. The Copyright Office website has all the forms and detailed instructions.
Digital submissions are possible, too.
Yeah, Circular 56 mentions they actually encourage online submissions, especially for unpublished stuff or digital-only releases.
Okay. Now, what about that old idea, the poor man's copyright? Mailing a copy to yourself. Does that hold any water legally?
Yeah, that comes up a lot. You mail yourself a sealed copy, keep it unopened.
Right, as proof of the date you created it.
Well, it might show when you created it, maybe, but the consensus, especially emphasized by Unison Audio pushing for official registration, is that it's not a substitute for registering with the Copyright Office. It doesn't give you those crucial legal benefits like the right to sue or claim statutory damages.
So it won't really stand up in court like an official registration certificate.
Definitely not in federal court. It's maybe slightly better than nothing, but not reliable legal protection. Go for the official registration.
Good to know. Ditch the post office method. Okay, thinking practically now. Producers sending beats out to artists? Maybe just starting out. That Reddit thread had some good tips on protecting yourself without scaring people off.
Yeah, that was a great discussion. Some really practical stuff came up, like always use producer tags or watermarks on the beats you send.
That makes sense.
Another common tip: send MP3s, not high-quality WAVs. MP3s are lower quality, less tempting for someone to use in a final track without permission.
Smart. Kind of a quality control protection.
Right. Some people also suggested sending maybe just sections of the beat, not the whole thing right away. And maybe the most important, include some basic terms of service.
Even just in the email sending the beat.
Yeah, even a simple outline saying, hey, this is for listening purposes only, contact me for licensing terms. It sets expectations. But the thread really stressed finding a balance.
Balance between protection and seeming easy to work with.
Exactly. You don't want to be so locked down that artists feel like it's too much hassle to even consider your beat. It's a fine line.
Finding that sweet spot. Okay, but what if the worst happens? You find someone using your beat or song without permission. What's the first move? Mixelite had advice here.
Right. First step, Mixelite says, deep breath. Don't just fire off an angry email.
Okay, stay calm. Then,
gather proof. Screenshots, links, download the infringing file if you can, document everything.
build your case.
Yep. Then reach out, contact the infringer politely but firmly, explain it's your work, they don't have permission, and they need to take it down or arrange a license. Mixelite notes sometimes people genuinely don't realize they're infringing.
Give them the benefit of the doubt first.
It's often a good first step. If that doesn't work, then you think about lawyers. Get a copyright attorney to send a formal cease and desist letter. That carries more weight.
And if that doesn't work?
Then you look at legal action. Maybe a lawsuit in federal court, or, as CD Baby mentioned, potentially using the CASE Act.
The CASE Act? What's that?
It's like a small claims court, specifically for copyright, run through the Copyright Office. It's meant to be a more affordable way to resolve smaller disputes, with damages capped around $30,000 per case. Still relatively new, but an option.
Interesting. Cheaper than federal court, potentially.
Yeah.
Because a federal court sounds expensive.
Oh, yeah. CD Baby mentioned federal litigation can easily cost tens, even hundreds of thousands in legal fees. Statutory damages might be high, but getting there costs a lot.
So registration is key for even having the option of statutory damages, but the cost of enforcing rights is still a factor.
Absolutely. And remember, statutory damages generally require registration before the infringement happens, or very soon after publication.
Got it. One last detail before we wrap the main points. How long does copyright even last? Is it forever?
Not forever, but a long time. Wikipedia lays it out. For most works created after January 1st, 1978, it's the life of the author plus 70 years.
Wow. Life plus 70.
Yeah. For works made for hire, it's different, usually 95 years from publication or 120 years from creation, whichever is shorter. Pre-1978 works have more complex rules, but stuff published before 1929 is generally public domain now in the U.S.
Okay, so it's a long-term asset, definitely worth protecting properly. Let's quickly recap some of those core copyright ideas we touched on.
Sure. That idea-expression dichotomy is fundamental. Remember, copyright protects the specific way you express an idea, not the underlying idea itself. Like the political theory example from Wikipedia, you can't copyright democracy, but you can copyright your book about democracy.
Right, and works made for hire, where the employer or commissioner owns the copyright from the start because they paid for its creation. Crucial in employment or commission situations.
Then there are derivative works and compilations. Wikipedia and Circular 56 define those. A derivative work, like a remix, gets copyright only on the new stuff added, not the original track. And a compilation, like a playlist or database, gets copyright protection on the selection and arrangement of the items, not the items themselves if they were pre-existing.
Got it. What about government stuff?
Works created by the U.S. federal government, Wikipedia notes they're generally not copyrightable. Public domain.
Interesting. And fair use.
Yeah.
It's like an exception.
Exactly. Fair use is a limitation on copyright. It allows limited use of copyrighted material without permission for purposes like criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. Courts look at 4 factors.
Oh, yeah, the 4 factors.
Yeah.
Purpose of the use, nature of the original work.
Right. Amount used and the effect on the market for the original. It's complex, judged case by case.
Okay. And finally, infringement itself. What does someone have to prove?
Wikipedia explains it. To win an infringement case, you generally need to prove 2 things. 1, you own a valid copyright, and 2, the defendant actually copied your work, specifically the protectable elements, making their work substantially similar.
Ownership and copy.
Yep. And remedies can be injunctions, court orders to stop the infringing and monetary damages, either actual losses plus infringers' profits, or the statutory damages we talked about if you registered in time. But again, registration is usually needed before you can even ask a federal court for these remedies.
Wow. Okay, it really is a complex landscape, isn't it?
It is multifaceted, for sure. But like we said, getting a solid grasp of these core ideas is just essential if you want to navigate it successfully.
Absolutely. So let's try and crystallize the key takeaways from this deep dive. We've really dug into that vital difference between the sound recording copyright and the composition copyright. That's number 1.
For sure.
We've broken down how beat licensing actually works, those non-exclusive versus exclusive deals, the different tiers, and that critical work-for-hire distinction.
And understanding the royalty streams, master, performance, mechanical, and crucially, how that publishing pie gets split in the license agreement. That's where the money is.
Definitely. And finally, the steps to protect yourself. Official copyright registration is king. Forget the poor man's copyright. Be smart about sending beats out and know the process if infringement happens.
Ultimately, knowing this stuff just empowers you. Whether you're an artist, a producer, or just interested in how the music biz works, understanding these fundamentals gives you confidence, security.
Yeah, and helps you make better deals, protect your creativity.
And ensures you get compensated fairly for what you create. Knowing your rights and responsibilities is step 1.
Well said. So, to wrap up, we want to leave everyone listening with a thought to maybe mull over. With this clear understanding of beat licensing and copyright, how might you approach your next collaboration or your next beat sale differently? How can you structure things to better protect both creative freedom and fair payment?
Good question to ponder. And definitely check out the U.S. Copyright Office website, copyright.gov, for even more detail. They have tons of resources.
Great suggestion. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.